Well, this week, because it is Youth Sunday, we have a message from Chad Lane as we continue our series in Luke. So go ahead and get your Bibles out, because I doubt he'll tell you if you have your Bibles, and I hope you please turn to Luke chapter 12. But I'd still like you to turn there if you have the Bible.
As Dean's fired up the video, we'll have a short video to show you, and I'm really happy to show you this video because it has our youth here on this video, and so hopefully you can hear it, and maybe you can relate with it. So, video away.
What do adults worry about? I'm gonna give a personal experience and say driving when your teenagers are driving. What do teenagers, or what do I worry about? It'll probably be grades, and if you're gonna have time to hang out with friends and other stuff like that.
As parents, adults worry about money and payments that they have to make. I think teenagers worry about what they look like.
What adults worry about is paying bills and their child's happiness. And what I think teenagers worry about is what other people think of them.
Okay, so I think adults worry about a lot of things. Number one, they worry about finances. So that's kind of important, being like an adult. I'm not an adult, so I wouldn't know. But I know my parents are all about finances. If you have kids, I know you gotta worry about your kids. Make sure they're making the right choices. Make sure they're not going out every night and doing bad things. Make sure they're staying in church. You gotta raise them up right. But teenagers worry about a lot of things. Number one, truck stuff. Okay, you gotta have the truck look good. You gotta have a good lift, wheels, tires, maybe a lot more. Gotta be line up everything. Gotta have horsepower. Gotta get go fast. They also worry about getting their, or most of us worry about getting their grades good because we want a future. Worry about having fun. Gotta have fun. Can't have life without fun. Right?
Car payments and delayed bills and house payments. Homework and presentations.
What I think adults worry about is they're worried about children, I think. And what do people my age worry about? I think they worry about Fortnite and stuff like that.
Okay, so what do adults worry about? I'm gonna use my parents as an example. I think my parents worry about me passing school, making sure I get home safe, and just worry about the kids. Now, what teenagers like me worry about, probably more about hanging out with friends, just getting through school, stuff like that. And that's what's really it.
I think adults worry about like their child's safety, and teenagers, I think they worry about like their character in life, or if they fit in, or if they work something or do something that doesn't please another person, they're gonna get looked at differently. So I think it's just based on their character.
What I think adults worry about, I think they worry about trying to make it every day and support their family. And I think students and kids worry about trying to make it through school with good grades and get through life.
So I think adults worry about everything. Teenagers, they worry about your work.
So what do adults worry about? Well, if you're an adult like me, you really don't worry about a whole lot. Maybe where dinner's gonna be, but you know, if you're a real adult with like a family and children, well, you worry about the kids. You worry about your family's health and their safety, providing for them. What do teenagers worry about? Well, let's be real, they just want to be cool.
Oh man, that makes me laugh. So it's some great responses. They're so cool. That's a great way to end it. And you know, if you don't know what Fortnite is, you know, it's a video game that the youth have been playing recently. So just so you know, if you don't know what that is, turn this off. But I hope you're listening. You know, if you're especially you're a parent of one of those children, hopefully you were listening to what they had to say and what they thought, their perspective of what adults worry about, what do their peers worry about generally. And I hope maybe you can relate. Maybe they hit the mark, maybe they didn't. But hopefully we're listening to what we think and what we see other people worrying about. But it's no surprise today that we're talking about worry. My lesson is called Why Worry? And we had a little interview of our students talking about what they see are the main worries in life for adults, for themselves. But one of the things we have to address, and I assume we already know this, but worry and stress and anxiety is a huge issue, a huge thing going on in our culture, in our generation today, in America. Just some of the statistics, I'm a statistics kind of guy, and I like to see what studies show. And just an article from Time Magazine, back in May, just had an article that said almost 40% of Americans are more anxious than they were at this time last year, May of last year. So that's pretty amazing. That's pretty staggering to hear that statistic. And so this is according to the American Psychiatric Association poll. So the APA surveyed about 1,000 U.S. adults for what their sources of anxiety, and that were what some of those polls had come up. So out of those, approximately 40, including in part of the study, 40 million American adults, roughly 18% of the entire population of America, have an anxiety disorder. Some sort of depression, anxiety disorder, something, mental problems of this degree that cause, medical disorders that we can call. And so some of those main things that they found, that what were the things that they worried about? What were the things that made these numbers, so great, so astronomical? One of the things was safety, health, and finances. Were kind of the top threes from this survey. Seemed to be the greatest anxieties according to the APA. 68% of the respondents said keeping myself or my family safe and my health made them either somewhat or extremely anxious. 68%. 67% said the same of paying my bills or expenses. And then politics and interpersonal relationships followed with 56% and 48% respectively. So you see these huge things that these are the main things that are constantly on probably everyone you walk by in your everyday. This is what's going on or what they're worrying about in their mind. And so the question is for you, what do you worry about? What makes you worry? And maybe for you, it's personal finances. Maybe it's finding a job. Maybe you're worried about losing your job. It's pretty common for those things to be worried about. Maybe you worry about retirement. Will I be ready for retirement? Maybe you're worried about your marriage. Maybe you're searching for that future spouse. Maybe it's your health. And maybe it's your grades. Maybe you're worrying about getting into the school that you want to get into. Or maybe it's just strictly just being accepted by friends in general. That maybe they won't like you when you go to school, or maybe this job, or you fill in the blank. I could go on and on about what the things we worry about. And I know as I'm saying these things, you're thinking of something right now you're worrying about. It's hard not to worry about when somebody is talking about worry, right? I want to address this on the front end, because what we're going to learn about today is going to be hopefully helpful for you. And I pray that you walk away with something that Jesus says today from Luke 12, 22 through 34, that you can see with a better perspective as you see those worries every day, every time you look in the mirror, or every time you walk out of that job, or get into this conversation. I hope this is something you could have in your back pocket for those times. So if you would have your thumb, or camp out in your Bible in Luke 12, we'll be, as I always like to do, really take apart what Jesus has to say is genius. And it's so, I cannot express how important what he says here today to you. So I hope you're listening. I hope you come back to this text whenever you have to be reminded of this today. So please turn there and we'll walk through from the beginning. And I do have to give a little bit of a recap because this does tie in with what Nick and Christine have been preaching about for the past 2 weeks through the book of Luke in chapter 12. Jesus is addressing these crowds, but there's also within these crowds he's addressing the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, and his disciples. And at this point, he's kind of addressed a lot of warnings, but also encouragements to these people in the crowd. And at times, we'll see he will talk to one group and then turn and talk to another group. And we see in this text, he's talking to his disciples. But everyone's still there. They're kind of listening in. They're leaning in. But keep in mind, this is directed to the disciples, which we can take away with what they're saying. What Jesus brings to the disciples is truly gold, what he's saying to them. So if you turn there, starting in verse 22, we're going to read 22 and 23 together, as it says. So then Jesus said to his disciples, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. Life is more than food, and the body is more than clothes." I want to pause right there. This is Jesus' introduction into this big discussion that he's been having with the crowd and his disciples, because there's some things that we're afraid of, he recognizes, and there's some opposition that he's talking with the disciples. He's coming into contact with, they're coming in opposition with the Pharisaical law, the teachers of the law. And there are a lot of things that are priorities. Jesus is putting into check, a reality check, as Christine called it, to put in a reality check where our perspective, our priorities are at. And so the first thing, if you know anything about going through Scripture, anytime you see the word "therefore," it is basically a compact word allowing you to remember everything he just talked about in chapter 12. So everything he talked about in chapter 12 is going packed into this statement, what he's about to get into. Therefore, as we'll get into. So he says, after everything I've told you, therefore, don't worry about your life. That's it. Close the book. Let's walk away. Okay, I wish it was that easy, Jesus, right? Just don't worry. It's like asking me to not worry about worrying. It's like, you don't think about thinking. This is something that I can't just stop it. And that's, some of the things, we talk to people with anxiety disorders, or, they can't stop. Sometimes it's something that just is always there. And so, the disciples are probably wondering, how can we not worry? Everyone's against us, and the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, and where are we going to eat tomorrow? Where are we going to stay tomorrow? Jesus, we're basically homeless right now. How can we not worry about what we're going to do? So Jesus goes into further. He says, basically this response he says in 23 is, "For life is more than food, and the body, and more than clothes." I think it's great what he says there. It's basically, he comes and comes close to us and says, is life all about food? No, life is not all about food. Well, is life all about how you look and how your body is and how healthy you are? No, it's important, but it's not all what life is about. So, is life all about what you need to wear, your clothes? Is that what life's all about? No. Jesus, I'm trying to say these things are important. Are you trying to say these are not important? No, I'm not saying that. He's saying life is more than these things. And so he, as we're going to go into this text, he's going to go further into these three things that I would say are the kind of the main three things, right? Food, health, and clothing. It's like, without those three, what do you have? So Jesus goes into deeper in verse 24. He says, "Consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable you are than birds." So I'm going to pause right there. Basically, Jesus says, let's take a step back. Hey, look at those ravens over there. And he's probably outside on the field. Said, guys, look at those ravens. Man, do you think they care about what they're going to eat? Do you think they're worrying about where they're going to get their next meal? I mean, they're not. They're carefree, and God takes care of them. They don't have some barn where they're going to store up all their seeds that they're going to pick up today. They're going day to day. God is taking care of them. And it's funny that he mentions a raven, because ravens were not, really the best birds, I guess, in the category. They were kind of, in that culture, almost seen as almost like unclean, these type of birds. Why wouldn't he say like an eagle? He's saying God even cares about the ones that are really not at the top of the food chain. He cares about the ones that we would call unclean or not worthy. He cares about them, takes care of them. How much more will he take care of you? And so sometimes Jesus, what he's doing is helping us see this perspective. Hey, let's take a step back. Maybe because you forget that he is taking care of these, how can he not take care of you? And so we keep going. And I love how he finishes that. Listen, you are much more valuable than these birds. And so going into verse 25, he talks about the next thing. He says this, verse 25 to 26. He says, "Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest?" I love how he says this. He's talking about the body. He first addressed the food issue, right, that we're all worried about. But now he's addressing our health, our body. And to understand, to get a little bit more technical here, the translation for this Greek word that we have here is helleika. It's a unit talking about, it can mean either age or bodily structure, or bodily stature or age. And so in your text, as the NIV says, hour to your life. Who can add a single hour to your life? The other translation, if you look at it in the sense of bodily structure, it could also be translated as who could add a single cubit to his stature. And if you don't know what cubit is, it's a Jewish measurement for a forearm. It's approximately about 18 inches. And so, who could add 18 inches to their height? Or who could add a single hour to their day? This is not something easy, right? We can't just add another hour to the day. We can't just add another 18 inches to ourselves. But man, who wouldn't want that, right? How many people would need that single extra hour, in a time of need, right? Oh, I wish I had one more hour to work on my paper. I wish I had one more hour to get this, this project done before it's due. I wish I had one more hour to finish this email. I heard on the radio the other day, and I tried to find where it was coming from, but it was saying that they found a study that said that to have a well-balanced life, to do everything you need to do in a day, it would take 40 hours a day to do all these things. and I think, I see you probably relate with that, because if you had to do everything you had to do, there's not enough time in the day to do it. So just remember that. 1 hour is really not going to change anything. And then, if you were like me in high school, I just died to be able to learn how to be tall enough to dunk. I prayed that I could dunk so bad. I love basketball to death in high school, and I played all the time. And there was my friends who were starting to be able to dunk. I watched my brothers grow way above me, and I'm the oldest, and my younger brothers are growing 6'3", 6'4", and they're dunking. And I'm like, I tried to do leg workout, the calf workouts. They said, oh, this is for sure. If you do this, you're going to be able to dunk. That's not true. I tried so hard, and I tried, just to just grow grow a little bit taller, and it just never happened. But what would I gain from that? I worried over this for so much to be able to do what? To put a basketball in a metal hoop. What am I thinking? So, but as he says, he's basically saying, look at this way, what he's saying here. He says, has anyone by fussing in front of the mirror or, asking themselves to get a little bit taller, or we could put the translation that to add another hour to their life, if fussing it's not going to add anything by worrying and being anxious over these things. It doesn't change anything. If fussing can't get even a single inch or a single hour in your life, then why do it at all? Why do you fuss at all? You can't change it. And so now we go on to verse 27. Jesus just continues to bring it in verse 27 through 28. As he says, consider how the lilies grow. They do not labor or spin, yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. That is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire. How much more will he clothe you? Oh, you of little faith. I love it. Jesus, again, takes a step back with us. He puts her arm around us, and the disciples said, hey, come over here. What do you see over there? I see a field, and a field with lilies. Okay. Hey, look how beautiful that is. And he goes into seeing, look around you. These fields, as they're probably looking at the fields in the region, wildflowers everywhere. If you're seeing, a spring day here in Tennessee, I love just seeing when all those wildflowers just pop up over a field, and it just goes from green to yellow or blue or whatever that color is. It's so beautiful. And God's given a perspective that says, the most wealthiest king in Israel's history wasn't even close to looking as good as that. And this is grass that God's taking care of, and he makes it so beautiful. And I love how he brings it back to, pay attention, guys. This is temporary. This is just grass. Look how much I'm taking care of it. It's gone today, or gone tomorrow. And how much more will he clothe you? How much more will he take care of you? I hope you're listening. Because as we continue going, Jesus really kind of gets a little offensive right here in this next text. As he does in Jesus' fashion, he really brings it home and makes it real. As he says in verse 29, and do not set your hearts on what you will eat or drink. Do not worry about it. For the pagan world runs after all such things, and your Father knows that you need them. And so I want to pause right there. What Jesus is saying really is offensive, especially to disciples, especially even to us. What he's saying, if you're listening, he's saying that there's no difference when we worry about all these things, when we are worrying about X, Y, and Z. When we worry about, how are we going to get this? How are we going to get that? I have to have this. I have to have that. I'm going to be happier if I eat this, if I shop here, if I look like this, if I had that job, if I had that income, if I lived there, if I had her, if I had him. These are the same things non-Christians worry about. Christians, non-Christians, we're all in the same boat. We could divide this room up into different categories, like here's all the finance people, here's all the people that worry about clothes. What God's saying here is that, the lilies don't care what the latest fashion trend is. They don't care about what kind of, clothes they have in the closet. I don't have any new clothes today. Great. I don't have the latest, lily petals today. Okay, all right. Well, you don't see how beautiful you already are and how much you already are being taken care of here. And I think if you turn on the TV, you go to the mall, you turn on the radio, flip on your phone, you will see this is how the world looks at life. You won't be happier unless you have this. You won't be better looking unless you have that. We have worry at our fingertips every time we look at our phone. We have worry every time we step into a building, every time we turn on the radio. They're telling us what to run after. But that is not you, is what Jesus is trying to say. Don't worry over these things like the world. What's the difference between you and them? You're acting as if you don't know that God exists and takes care of you. And so here's where he really brings it home. Here's where he's not just trying to throw us around for a loop here. How do we not worry, Jesus? Tell us, how do we not worry about these things? We don't want to be like the world, like the pagans. Here's what he says, and I hope you hear this if you haven't heard anything yet. He says in verse 31, "But seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions, give to the poor. Provide purses for yourself that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will not be exhausted, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." We really have to unpack this, but the first thing right out of the gate, what Jesus is really trying to help us understand, if you don't want to worry, if you don't want to run after these things, then what do we worry about? What do we run after? The kingdom. Seek his kingdom. And I really like the parallel text to this in Matthew 6:33, which is basically a mirror discussion of what Jesus is saying here to that text. And he says it, I like how it says it at the end of it, what Matthew adds to it, to the driving point. He says, "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness." Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. That I can't stress enough the word first in there for you guys to understand. And that is key to everything that we're talking about here. What do I have to wear today? I'm going to look horrible. I'm going to get fired today. What am I going to eat? How am I going to pay the bills? Pause, time out. Seek his kingdom first, not yours. Seek his righteousness first, not yours. Seek his will. Before anything you do, hit the pause button, hit time out. What am I doing? Why am I not asking what God wants first? What does he want? What does he desire? What does he think I should be doing? That's the thing that we need to be asking ourselves. What do I do first? Not, what am I going to wear? How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to get through this? Seek him first. And Jesus said, "I will take care of you and what you need." If you do that, the rest will come. He plans to give you the kingdom. And this is huge. If you do this, the rest will come, and he will give you everything. Don't worry about what you're going to have in this life, or what wealth you'll have anymore. Seek him. The things that are not temporary, the things that are beyond this world, the eternal possessions that he talks about. And the final point is really key too. If you're asking yourself, how do I discern what to do? And the question he says here at the final point is, where your treasure is, there you'll find your heart. And if you want to unpack that, the reality is that the things that you care about most, the things that you want most, the things that you spend the most time on, the things that you devoted yourself to, that's where you'll find your heart. That's where you'll find that these are the things that you run after. So where your treasure is, where your heart is. So the question today is I ask you and me, including, what do I worry about today? What do you worry about today? What's on your mind today? Behind every worry, there is uncertainty. All right? We worry about what's uncertain. It's just natural. We can't help it. But how can we change that? How can we change something we don't know? How can we change something that hasn't happened yet? How can we change something that we can't see, we can't stop, we can't change? Why do you worry about something that you have no control over? Because it's uncertain. And in the middle of your worry, is this what happens, right? We have this focused tunnel vision on this one thing. That's the beauty of worry, right? It's that we just forget everything that God has already done for you up to that moment. We focus on, this is what I have to do, this is what I need to get, this is what me. And not just take a step back what Jesus is doing. Hey, look at those birds. Look at those fields. Look at you. You're well taken care of. And I've taken care of you, and I'll continue to take care of you today and tomorrow, and I've always taken care of you. Why are we worried? Do we not know who God is? As he finishes up, wrapping up everything we've talked about, remember what he said. You are more valuable than anything in this world. He will take care of you better than anything. Depend on him. Seek him first. And what's there left to worry about? We're talking about the God who cares about you, the same God that at this very second is rotating the earth at 67,000 miles per hour on this axis. The same God who throws that object into orbit at, rotate 1,000 miles per hour. We are flung through space 67,000 miles per hour around the sun. And then that is traveled over 1.5 million miles in just 365 days. That's the God who cares about you. That's the God that is doing that right now, which we trust that he's doing. We wake up and say, oh, God did it today. Let's give him a hand. He made it happen. The sun came up. No, he's taking care of the big things. Why don't we trust him with the small things in our life, the worries that we care about? Seek him first. Where's your heart today? Where is that treasure that Jesus talks about? What are you running after? What are you looking at every morning when you wake up first in your life? So, if you've accepted this idea that God is in control, He is first in your life, I challenge you to continue to do that. Because as a Christian, as I surely know, every time I wake up, I have to be reminded that God is in control. And that this is the God who cares about me. I challenge you to continue in that thought. If you're a Christian, you understand, you put his kingdom first in your life and everything comes rest. I challenge you to keep doing that. And I challenge you to be the difference where you are, in your workplaces, in your families, in your friends, that they see something different about you. Like, why are you not worried about this? Why are you not stressed out about this? How can you not be saddened about this situation? Because you're going to tell them why. And that's the difference in this world. But if you don't know what this is about, and you've not had Jesus as your first, you've not accepted that idea, then I truly pray for you on my knees that you be free of this worry that has pretty much chained you to this world in your life. I pray that you're free to put Jesus first, his kingdom first in your life, because your life will be full. You will have his love that's already there, but you will see it. His kingdom first. His will be done, not yours today. Seek that and you will work. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this single thought of putting you first, seeking your will first. God, every time I wake up and I worry about that one thing again and again, all the uncertainty, all the things I can't stop, all the things that we're not good enough or ready enough, that God, I pray that we take a step back, hit pause, and be reminded that you are in taking care of us. You take care of us right now, and you continue to do so. And help us to see that and to depend on you, to rely on you, and to be the difference in this world, to ask what we're about. And God, we're going to tell them that you are more than this life, that you are bigger than any of the things, the biggest worries in our life, that we trust you and we care for you. Even when we lose those things, God, we still have you, and we're still okay. And that's all your name. Amen. And the youth would come up here this time in our last closing song. If you would stand with them and sing along with them.